Now, we've been talking a bit about the local elections already on the programme. Now, on Thursday, voters across the UK will go to the polls. And because the votes postponed from last year, it's going to be the biggest set of elections in the UK since 1973. Now, arguably, the biggest battle is in Scotland, where voters will determine the makeup of the next Scottish Parliament. But throughout the campaign, we've interviewed all of the major party leaders, and today we're going to be completing the set with the leader of the Scottish Lib Dems, Willie Rennie, who joins us now from Edinburgh. Thank you very much for being with us. So the election's just a few days away. What's your pitch?
Liberal Democrats want to put recovery first, not independence. That means cutting weights for mental health treatment. It means bounce-back support for children in schools. It means creating jobs for people desperate for work and, of course, taking action on the climate. But in order to do that, we need to bring the country together. We need to unite the country because we'll need the skills and talents of everyone to get over these massive challenges. We shouldn't be adding to the problems that we've already got and the mountains we've already got to climb by adding independence into the mix. That will make it even more difficult to get through this most deadly pandemic where thousands of people have died and thousands more have lost their jobs. So let's come together, let's put recovery first. And it's the Liberal Democrat seats in this election that will make the difference between the Parliament being focused on recovery, which Liberal Democrats want, and the Parliament being focused on independence, which is what the SNP want. So if you want to put recovery first, vote Lib Dem.
At the same time, though, you, I'm sure, will accept that it's been a pretty difficult few years for the Liberal Democrats. If you really want to have the influence that you're talking about, what would be a good night?
Well, we're getting more people coming to us from all sorts of different backgrounds who are going to vote for us this time. In particular, people who voted SNP and for independence before, because they recognise that it just seems the wrong time to focus on another independence referendum in the wake of one of the most deadly pandemics. And they're voting for the Liberal Democrats.
The question was, what would be a good night for you?
Well, what would be a good night for us? Well, I'd never put any limits on the number of seats that we're going for. I just know we're going to grow with the number of seats that we're going to gain in every part of Scotland. Because the beauty of this election, Sophie, is that every single vote on the peach ballot paper, because remember we have 2 votes in Scotland, every single vote counts. So if you want to put recovery first, then you need to vote for the Liberal Democrats in every corner of Scotland. And that means that I know we're going to gain more seats.
Put recovery first, not the time for independence. That message definitely coming across. Now, you said recently that you would vote against another referendum on independence at every opportunity. But if the SNP do win a majority, how is it democratic to resist that?
Well, it's very democratic that I follow what my voters tell me to do. I mean, I'm against another independence referendum because I think it will distract the country at a time that we need to build recovery. If people vote for me on the basis that I'm clear, crystal clear, in an election campaign, it would be bizarre if I did the opposite after the election. But I don't accept the premise of your question anyway, because all the polls are showing that there's a decline in support for independence and for the SNP, because people know now is not the moment to choose another independence referendum when we've got so many challenges to overcome. I mean, we've got a mountain of mental health waits in this country, Sophie. Over 1,500 people wait over a year. Young people wait over a year to get mental health treatment. That's 5,000 adults wait over a year. We've got one of the highest drug death rates in Europe, 3.5 times what it is in England. We need to focus on these challenges to try and get recovery to improve ordinary people's lives. We won't get that with another independence referendum, and that's why I will not support it under any circumstances at any time.
You say you'll not support an independence referendum under any circumstances, even if there is a majority for it. You know, the Lib Dems spent years campaigning against the Brexit referendum result. I mean, is it time to drop Democrats from your name?
I mean, what we are saying is for the next 5 years we need to put recovery first. That equally applies to the issue of Europe. Of course, nobody will be surprised that, I'm a very strong pro-European. I was against Brexit. I don't think it's good for the country. But I recognise that the recovery has got to come first for the next 5 years. That means putting aside the independence issue and, of course, making sure that we smooth the relationship with Europe. We make sure we can break down the trade barriers. But now is the time to focus on the recovery, not on the constitutional issues.
If it's so important to focus on the recovery rather than independence, why did you reject the offer of the Conservative Party to form a pro-union alliance?
Well, the Conservatives are part of the problem in Scotland. They brought us Brexit in the middle of a pandemic. We've seen all the Conservative Party is mired in sleaze at Westminster. No, what we need is a progressive alternative in Scotland. A party that's going to stand up to put recovery first, a moderate centre-ground, centre-left party like the Liberal Democrats that will focus on public services, on improving people's lives, not carrying on all the arguments about independence over and over again, because that's what the Conservative Party want as much as the SNP. So if you want to put all those divisions behind us, then you need to vote Liberal Democrat in every part of Scotland.
I know it's coming across pretty clearly your views about the Conservative Party, but at the same time, if there was going to be an independence referendum, would you be prepared to hold your nose and focus on a single cross-party campaign?
I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, we're jumping several steps ahead here. I don't accept that the SNP or the Nationalists will get a majority because I think people are going to reject the SNP and their proposal for another independence referendum. The idea that we're immediately into another campaign just fills me with dread, so I'm not even thinking about that stuff. I want to focus on the recovery because that will be the way to improve people's lives today.
OK, Willie Rennie, thank you very much for being on the show. Much appreciated.